So good, so good, so good.
Give big, save big with Rack Friday deals at Nordstrom Rack. For a limited time, take an extra 40% off red tag clearance for a total savings up to 75% off. Save on gifts for everyone on your list from brands like Vince, Cole Haan, Sam Edelman, and more. All sales final and restrictions apply. The best stuff goes fast, so bring your gift list and your wish list to your nearest Nordstrom Rack today.
We
are
cultivate.
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 We are cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Savage.
Hello.
Hello there.
Long time no see.
I don't really have anything in either the cubby or the closet, but I do want to shout out our friend Dustin over at Sandman Stories Presents, because at the recent live show that our friends from Reddit on Wiki had in Toronto, congratulations guys.
Yeah.
Dustin was wearing our Beware the Deathgrass shirt. So
Really?
yeah,
That's like my favorite design.
I know. So thanks, Dustin.
Cool. Thanks, Dustin. That's so nice.
It's like we were there in spirit.
LOL. On brand.
Yes. All right. So without further ado, we're just going to dive into this week's topic, which is prairie madness.
Apt, considering we just talked about prairie grass.
Now it's the madness.
It's what leads you into the grass.
And sometimes not back out. So information was pulled from the following sources: a 2025 retrospect journal post by Kate Phillips, 2024 Homestead article by Barbara Bamberger Scott, 2023 Medium post by Mel Carriere, so there's actually 3 of those.
Okay.
2022 Atlas Obscura article by James Gaines, 2020 Psychology Today article by Matt W. Wolf, a 2016 Scribd article by Heike, 1893 The Atlantic article by E.V. Smalley, and Wikipedia. Thank you to Carrie Ann for her research assistance on this episode, and links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Ye Olde Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
How do the places we live shape our minds? And what happens when those places are vast, empty, and uncompromising?
I don't like any of that.
Between the mid-1800s and the early 1900s, settlers began to migrate from the congested cities of the East to the vast expanses of the Canadian prairies and American West. And it wasn't long before stories of once vibrant, seemingly happy people began to experience severe bouts of melancholy and depression.
Yeah.
But why?
I know. You don't need history books to figure it out, man.
You tell me.
I mean, going from having all of the comforts that they're used to literally not a single one, having to start from scratch. I think a lot of people really didn't understand how much effort it would take, kind of creating your own destiny, as it were. Like, there weren't houses that were readily made. There weren't cities that were readily established, not in the ways that they probably would have assumed,
Hmm.
or maybe just imagined how easy it would be. So, yeah, I'd get pretty sad and frustrated
Yeah.
after a period of time because, like, dwindling resources and all that stuff, like the really bad weather, too. Like a
Hmm.
windstorm could take out everything.
Hmm.
Yeah. Not being able to carry the, 500-pound heirlooms because there's not a lot of automated travel at this time, too.
Hmm.
At least not in an affordable way.
Hmm.
Yeah, it would suck.
Yeah,
It would suck.
it would. In a paper written by paleoanthropologist Alex D. Velez of the State University of New York at Oswego, he explores the potential connection between the silence of the Great Plains and the mental illnesses reported by early settlers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, the symptoms of what would go on to be known as prairie madness or prairie fever included withdrawal, changes in habit
Mhm.
or character, depression, and unfortunately, violence. And because it's a thing, there's a debate as to whether women felt the affliction of prairie madness more than men, and vice versa.
Mm. Let's just compare that to, like, murders and, like, violent crimes, and then we can decide
Yeah,
how real that is.
yeah. There seems to be no clear quote unquote winner of who experienced more
Mm.
issues, but what did
Yeah.
become clear is that both genders would experience this madness in different ways.
Yep. We process differently.
So, women were more likely to exhibit the following symptoms: crying, withdrawal from social situations, and slovenly dress.
Oh, well, were
Who,
they gonna go to Ye Old Laundromat in the
yeah,
middle of nowhere?
who are they going to impress?
Screw you, guy.
The Vanderbilts aren't coming
Oh,
over for lunch,
like,
so
there's, like, 12 layers
yeah.
to get dressed. You think the Prairie is gonna be forgiving at all? I sweat in a tank top, man. Like, come
Hmm.
on. I can't imagine
Yeah.
all of that.
Men, on the other hand, would show signs of depression that often devolved into acts of violence.
Mm.
In cases where the psychosis progressed to self harm, it was more often in the case of women, and their means of completing suicide were often very explicit.
Ugh,
So,
that quiet really lets the imagination run wild.
mhm.
Mhm.
But what caused these extreme reactions? Most reports of prairie madness occurred in the Great Plains area of the United States, and this may be linked to the Homestead Act of 1862.
Okay.
Now, this act, which we have mentioned in past episodes, granted a
Mhm.
person 160 acres, or 0.25 square miles, of land that they had to live on and cultivate within 5 years. Or they'd have to,
Or they take it back.
or they'd take it back and be like,
Yep.
you didn't do shit with it.
Like, screw you, guy. It's mine again.
Yep. These tracts of land would often be at least half a mile away from their nearest neighbor. And although many indigenous tribes lived in close knit communities in the wilds of the frontier, many white settlers in the area were extremely isolated from one another, requiring them to be self sufficient.
I just yeah, that chick I mean, that's still kind of a thing today, right?
Hmm.
Like, if you talk to predominantly white people, they'll be like, "Oh, I just really want land. I really want space.
Hmm.
I want a yard, like a backyard or, like, some big thing. Like, I don't wanna live near anybody." Yeah, and then you'll have more, like, close-knit communities, like the indigenous communities where, like, "No, like, we're gonna help each other out. We're gonna hang out, live together."
Yep.
I like that one better.
In some areas of the plains, the nearest town could be a full day's travel away by horse, unless you happened to be lucky enough to live near a railroad, which were few and far between at that time.
Yeah. And didn't they, like there weren't a lot of stops,
Correct.
and in Middle America at that time too,
Yeah.
because there was nothing to stop at.
Yes. Many towns would be 10 to 20 miles or 16 to 32 kilometers apart. And
Oof.
although traveling into town could be done within a day, the requirements of such travel would prevent it from being a frequent trip, given all that needed to be done at home.
Right. Well, and the animals too. I mean, if you really had to gauge how much they could handle as well,
Hmm.
how often they could go out.
And if you only have a horse, you can't buy a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to be hauling back on said horse.
Right.
Or,
Unless you want to kill said horse.
and not everybody had a horse. Some people had to walk into town.
Mhm.
So then you had to only come
Mhm.
back with whatever you could carry. So,
Mhm.
in many cases, the men would be the only ones going into town, leaving the wives and
That makes
children to
sense.
tend to the farms until their husbands returned.
Mhm.
And heaven forbid anyone fall ill. Considering how long it could
Yeah.
take to get to town, the chances of a doctor reaching you in time to help with any major ailments were highly unlikely.
Yeah, you just die on your way there, on their way there. Like
Yeah.
you think you think the ambulance times are bad. Nothing in comparison.
As a result, many children who had the misfortune of falling ill would end up passing before a physician even saw them.
Hmm.
A sobering statistic comes from historian Charles R. King, who shared, quote, in 1875 Leavenworth, nearly 50% of the 354 burials were those of infants and children, end quote.
I can imagine. Like if it's hard for an adult to survive, like a hardy adult,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're taking really intense like leaps to protect the child, like could be taken out by a cold, a windstorm that, you know, took out part of your house and it was too cold that night and they died,
Yep.
or you went into town and caught something. Yeah, like history has not been kind to children
Nah,
at all.
nah,
No, there's never really been a safe period for children,
nah.
but especially then.
Yeah. And considering how long it took just to get to town, traveling back east to visit family was out of the question.
Yeah, once you were gone, you were gone.
Like, unless you were like, I can't do this, and decided to head
Mhm.
back, but even then you'd be
Like
heading back with
forever.
nothing.
Yeah, and you would hope that you would have something to go back to at that point.
Yep. In a word, living on the prairie meant living alone, and that loneliness
Mhm.
could be particularly difficult during the harsh weather conditions. In an article published in The Atlantic, Eugene Virgil Smalley wrote, quote, on every hand the treeless plain stretches away to the horizon line. In summer it is checkered with grain fields or carpeted with grass and flowers, and it is inspiring in its color and vastness. But 1 mile of it is almost exactly like another, save where some watercourse nurtures a fringe of willows and cottonwoods. When the snow covers the ground, the prospect is bleak and dispiriting. No brooks babble under icy armor. There is no bird life after the wild geese and ducks have passed on their way south. The silence of death rests on the vast landscape, save when it is swept by cruel winds. End quote.
Yeah, like thinking on it, like weather is so intense in the Midwest when it comes to blizzards and stuff, especially in like the lower plains, like Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
where nothing is protecting you.
Yep.
So I can imagine, like, we've had harsh weeks before. I can only imagine what it would be like when it's just you or you and your children,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to keep them in a house for weeks.
Yep. Winter could bring several feet of snow at any given time, and given the significant lack of trees, finding wild game in the winter was next to impossible.
The saddest Oregon Trail
Mm-hmm.
side quest.
If you were unlucky enough to be snowed in, You could be trapped inside your home for several days at a time until you were able to dig yourself out.
Yeah. Had to be a really good prepper.
Conversely, summers could be scorchingly hot, and with few trees to offer shade, there would be little relief from the sun's rays. The unrelenting heat,
Heat exhaustion.
threat of insect infestation, not to
Oh,
mention the potential for drought and crop failure.
yeah. And you'd have to be out there too. Like, it takes years for you to get steady, viable crops,
Hmm.
even then. So, yeah, you'd be roughing it for at least the first 2 years at the very least.
Hmm. And it wasn't just the lack of neighbors that could become an issue. It put settlers at risk of succumbing to madness, but many immigrant families moving to the area would have had vastly different languages and customs from those of their neighbors.
Hmm.
Bear in mind that in Europe, many people lived in small, closely knit communities. The extreme isolation would have been particularly shocking to many.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, the majority of them were leaving because there was no more room.
Hmm.
A lot of the cities were overrun, so going from one extreme to the next would be really jarring.
Yep.
And if you didn't take that whole journey preparing yourself for it,
Yep.
yeah, I could see how it would mess you up in more ways than one.
Now, going back to Dr. Alex Velez, he conducted an experiment in which he analyzed the sounds of the Great Plains in Nebraska and Kansas, which was primarily wind and rain, and compared them to the sounds of the more urban locales of Barcelona and Mexico City, whose soundscapes focused more on traffic and pedestrians.
Mhm.
His experiment was to determine what sounds people would be more likely to pick up. As you can imagine, even when there wasn't heavy traffic, the variety of sounds that you would hear in the city was vastly different from those you would hear on the plains.
Mhm.
The sounds of the city would be like white noise, whereas in the wilds of the prairie, there wasn't that constant hum in the background. So when you did hear a sound, it would come across as much louder than you would think.
Jarring.
Hmm. So picture this. You move from a small, active community in the east, and after arriving at your new home in the vast countryside, all you hear is quiet until a frog croaks, or a cricket chirps, or it starts to rain, or a rooster crows. And each sound would feel like a bullhorn out of the quiet, and the howling
Mhm.
winds that are so common of the area could have felt like the roar of a train on the track.
Yeah, I bet. I can only imagine because, like, we have experienced that wind before and
Hmm.
that, like, deafening sound
Hmm.
when your ears pop, and that's, like, with buildings and trees that
Yep.
are trying to mitigate some of that sound too. Like, I can't imagine that. Ugh, the cicadas, could you imagine
Ugh.
how loud cicadas would be at
Mm-mm.
that time?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. No, thank you.
Dr. Velez noted in his 2022 article, The Wind Cries Mary, The Effect of Soundscape on the Prairie Madness Phenomenon, quote, I propose that a number of settlers may have suffered from conditions such as misophonia, which is a chronic
Mhm.
condition where specific sounds trigger strong emotional and physical responses, such as anger,
Mhm.
anxiety, or fight or flight, and acute hyperacusis, which is a severe sensitivity disorder where everyday sounds are perceived as uncomfortably loud or even painful,
Hmm.
that can cause increased sensitivity to environmental sounds. Both conditions can result from high stress environments and cause behavior consistent with descriptions of prairie madness, such as depression, insomnia, and violent or irrational behavior. End quote.
Could you imagine if, like, say you were at your house, you're this dude, he's got to go into town, but he's been hearing nothing but like the wind outside his house for like the past week. And then he goes into town and has to stay for the night or something. And he hears all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I could see how, like, that would be a really intense trigger.
Mm-hmm.
anybody raising their voices, which they would if they were drinking or, socializing in any capacity, like haggling, trading.
The sounds of
Yeah.
horses, the sounds of wagons. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, some researchers aren't convinced that sound alone could have caused prairie madness. Many put more
Right.
stock in the isolation that people would have felt, not just the lack of constant white noise. The phenomenon of prairie madness wasn't limited to just those who lived on the fringes of society. Let's discuss a few cases of prairie madness, such as that of Madame Mattie Silks from 1877, thanks to the quote unquote reports of Forbes Parkhill.
Mm.
Quote, "This is the story of lovely Mattie Silks, the fastest woman in all the West, and her knight in tarnished armor, Correz D. Thompson, who tried hard to be the
Oh.
fastest man." It begins with an account of the only known formal pistol duel ever fought between women. This duel was on
Hmm.
the night of August 25th, 1877, in the Olympic Gardens at Denver. The principals were Mattie Silks and Katie Fulton. Feminine marksmanship being what it is, Mattie missed Katie, and Katie missed Mattie, but Court was shot in the neck. End quote.
Oh no!
So,
Oh no! I shouldn't be laughing, but like,
so Mattie Silks operated a number of brothels in eastern Colorado in the 1870s. At the
mm-hmm.
time, a grasshopper infestation had recently swept through the area, decimating crops
Oh,
and everything remotely edible in the region.
that would have been awful. Like
Yeah.
seen that. Like the devastation is crazy.
hmm
Oh,
And after the livelihood of many people was destroyed, some women turned to sex work in order to make ends meet. And a number of
right.
those women worked for Mattie Silks. And at the time of what would go on to be called a naked duel, Mattie was enjoying a picnic at the park with her kept man, Cortez
Mm.
Thompson, when it was interrupted by a ravel madam named Katie Fulton. Now, the two women began to argue over the affections of Cortez, and the men in the crowd tried to get the women to fight in the nude, which at that time would have meant in their bloomers,
Right.
as it would be so much easier for them to aim without the hindrance of their fineries.
Of course. Of
hmm
course. The men are thinking of them
Yes.
and their comfort.
In the end, the women didn't actually duel at all, as many of the men who had visited their respective establishments began to fight on their behalfs,
Cute.
with the whole event devolving into a giant fistfight.
Of course.
And at some point, a few shots were fired, and it's just as likely that Cortez was run down due to his gambling debts as his cheating ways. But we may never
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
So,
Part of me wanted to, I just had the fantasy of like both of the women were like, you know what, he's not worth it. And they killed him instead.
yep,
But yeah, probably an errant bullet,
yeah,
some disgruntled dude.
yeah,
If there's a whole crowd of people fighting, it could be a multitude of reasons.
yeah. We can also look at the story of John Brown, who was an abolitionist that lived in the Kansas Territory near Pottawatomie Creek. He started to become disillusioned by the lack of action from the northern politicians regarding the issue of slavery, particularly after pro-slavery ruffians from Missouri crossed the border into the free town of Lawrence and sacked it.
Not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be pissed too.
So John Brown, 4 of his sons, and 2 others set out to enact their own form of vengeance on the night of May 24th, 1857.
Okay.
Over the course of the evening, they entered the home of James P. Doyle, a very vocal pro-slavery man, where they
Mhm.
abducted him and his 2 sons before hacking all 3 of them to death with broadswords.
All right.
They repeated this form
Damn.
of justice twice more against Alan Wilkinson and William Sherman in what would go on to be known as the Pottawatomie Creek Massacre.
Yeah. The amount of effort that would take.
hmm
would be horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have taken time, too.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
It's hard to say if this act was caused by a true madman or a crusading abolitionist looking to incite the American Civil War to force the North to end slavery once and for all.
I think it was a guy who was just at the end of his rope, being tired of people not being treated like people. Was it right? Probably not. Not the
No.
greatest way to do that. But
No.
he did it.
So prior to 1890, John's deeds were viewed as heroic.
Yeah.
And the famous Battle Hymn of the Republic was still known as John Brown's Body.
Oh.
After 1890, when Jim Crow laws once more aimed to put people of color in their place, views of John Brown changed, viewing him as someone who was insane for his violent deeds.
Yeah, fuck that.
And as noted by Mel Carriere in his Prairie Madness series, quote, a sociologist named James W. Lowen investigated the phenomenon of John Brown's changing outlook in American history. Between 1890 and 1970, children were taught that John Brown believed voices in his head were talking to him, telling him to murder people. He thought God was whispering in his ear, ordering him to take up the sword of an avenging angel. Modern scholars do not doubt John Brown's religious fanaticism. They recognize that the villain or hero of Pottawatomie Creek was convinced God was on his side, but also cite a lack of evidence that Brown thought God was speaking to him directly, end quote.
Yeah, and he was really specific about who he was killing.
Yes.
And his family was in on it. So, like, you'd also have to say that his sons had madness too.
Mm-hmm.
And the other men that helped them had the same form of delirium. And while it's possible, don't get me wrong, it's definitely possible,
Mm-hmm.
I call bullshit.
Yeah. And stories of prairie madness have been documented in a lot of written works as well. Some examples include the character of Barrett in O.E. Rolvag's Giants in the Earth from 1927, in which Barrett feels an immense sense of guilt over leaving her family behind in Norway. She feels that her life on the plains is God's way of punishing her, and her husband, Perhansa, notes her steady decline into melancholy and mental illness during their time in the Dakotas in the 1870s.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm. O Pioneers, written by Willa Cathers, which I have read, depicts the life of a Swedish immigrant family, particularly Frank Shabata, and his mental decline after moving from the city to a farm. His mental decline gets to the point that he ends up murdering his wife and her lover before succumbing to a complete breakdown.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nonfiction depictions can be found in books like Molly, the Journal of Molly Dorsey Sanford in Nebraska and Colorado territories. Quote, I had gone to bed one night, but could not sleep. My father was constantly in my mind. I seemed to feel that he was coming home, although he had left only 2 days before, and his visits home occur only every 2 or 3 weeks, as it is so far, and he generally walks, as it is too expensive to hire a conveyance. So the idea of his coming directly back was too absurd for anything, but still the impression was that he was coming, and would be with me soon, was so strong that I finally got up and started a fire. It was not so cold, but I was shivering for some cause, end quote. So when did prairie madness stop? In the late 19th century, gaining access to wagons and horses could dramatically improve one's mental and physical life, because then you could travel, you could get places, you could get things.
Yep. Shelter, sound, steady sound. If you want white noise, the wagons and the clumping really helps.
All mention began to disappear around the 20th century, likely due to several factors, including the rise in the number of railroads bisecting the West,
Mhm.
the invention and dissemination of telephones and automobiles,
That definitely would help.
and the growth of more towns and cities.
People.
And that's the short but interesting history of Prairie Madness.
It's something you never consider,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when I think of people moving out west, I don't think of the vast amount of silence or how the wind would sound really loud
Mm-hmm.
or like have any of those people experienced cicadas
Yep.
or the like sheer amount of grasshoppers and frogs and other wildlife. Like, yes, I know that they exist, in other parts of the world, but it would be different
Mm-hmm.
still.
And in some of the sources, there was, and I didn't quote it, and I should have. One of the authors was noting it wouldn't be completely silent. You'd be able to hear
No,
the bison running across
right.
the plains. You might hear a lone coyote howling from time to time. But yeah, for the most part, it would be very, very quiet.
Yeah, that would be hard. It would be almost impossible for people today.
Yeah.
People cannot handle quiet today.
And I had kind of forgotten, and it was in one of the sources, Prairie Madness was mentioned sort of indirectly in Laura Ingalls Wilder's book, The Golden Years. And
Okay.
in the book, her sister Mary is staying with another family while she's doing a short teaching job somewhere.
Okay.
And the place where she's staying, the matriarch is someone who had recently moved to the area from out east. We're kind of struggling a bit with all that entails being on the prairie, like all the
Mhm.
chores and
Hard living.
hard
Hard
living
work.
and taking care of multiple children, usually
Mhm.
by oneself.
Yep.
And
Where everything outside wants to kill them.
yeah, and there was a section in the book where Mary later recounted to her sister that she overheard an argument, and there was like a fabric divider between where she was staying and like the
Mhm.
other quote unquote room. And
Right.
when she peered around the fabric, the wife had like a knife pointed at the husband, like she was gonna stab him through the heart. And he was able to
Okay.
like talk her down, and she went and put the knife back in the kitchen and then went to bed. But after that, Mary was like, I need to hurry up and get back home. Like she was like, I
Yeah,
need to
your
be
kids
out of
know
here.
your kids know enough. Bye. They
So
know everything there is to know.
as I was reading that, I was like, yeah, I vaguely remember that part of that book, but it's
Mhm.
been decades since I've read the Little
Right.
House books. But yeah, so very interesting that it would be considered fiction, but it's really not fiction. So
It's not fiction in the way typical fiction is today.
yes, it's based on real life,
Mm.
more real life than fiction.
Mm.
But we'd love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
Anyway, no listener questions this week.
Ooh, okay.
So what's something good you'd like to share?
Something good, something good. Oh, we've been kicking ass and taking names at work. I tell you what.
I'll tell you
We
what.
had a couple major releases come out recently, and I'm just really proud of my team and the work we're doing. And yeah, this whole month is our busy season. So I usually kind of forget to come up for air in the month of November. So it was a really satisfying week, and we're planning an actual decent pizza party to celebrate, because we've got one more release. Hopefully this week, might be next week, we don't know. But yeah, I just really love my job. My good thing is my job this week. I love who I work with, and I love what we do, and I believe in the program.
Yay.
So that's my good thing. My new pump has been working pretty well too.
Nice.
Real slick. We finally got it to make so it's Diabetes Awareness Month, November, and I am on the Twist pump. It is a fairly new pump in the United States. I believe it's been out for a while in other countries, but I've been using it, and I've been able to sleep through the night
Nice.
without a low, which I haven't been able to do in literal years. It's still, so they're still a fairly new company, so they don't have a lot of like their beeps and sounds kind of set. And it was a few of the sounds were kind of triggering my veteran husband with PTSD whenever I would bolus for a food. So that was a problem at first, but I was able to work with the company, and we have it on quiet mode, and it's better. But I hope they continue to improve and hopefully have a vibration option in the future, because they don't have a vibration option, and you have to use your phone as like the remote essentially. So yeah, it can be like a few of the sounds it makes, not kidding, sound as loud as like the smoke detector beep.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, it's really hard. It scares me, and I'm like, I know it's happening.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. Couple good things. My job's been good, and my pump has been acting like a decent pancreas. So,
Always good.
not too bad. What about you? It's a good thing.
So this big project that I've been working on pretty much nonstop since the beginning of November, and honestly probably since mid-October. The switchover happened last Friday.
Okay.
So we are now, I say fully integrated into HubSpot, but I mean, we're not. There's still...
You're using it.
Yeah, there's still stuff that I have to build, but we have successfully migrated content from our old system that we use for... They used it for like over 10 years.
Oof. Yeah, going live is hard.
Yeah.
For any implementation. Go live is huge. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you feel like 80 million pounds lighter, even though you still have stuff to do?
Yeah, so fun fact, last Friday I was in the office, and that was like the go live day or whatever. Like after the morning, I just like crashed hard. I had like
I'm sure.
the stress crash, and I had a hard time explaining this to my boss because he's never like had this. But I was like, I've been operating at like a 13 nonstop pretty much for the last like 3-4 weeks. And now that everything's done, like my body's done being in fight or flight mode nonstop. And now it's like, oh,
sleep,
bitch, sleep. And
night.
Because he's like, what is wrong with you? You look like sick. And I said, I'm just tired. Like I am just
adrenaline jump.
I am wrung dry. Like I just need to sleep. And so it's going well. I'm jumping right into the next round of stressful things that I have to do. But
Of course.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the world of marketing, is
Mhm.
from one fire into another. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, my good thing is that that big project is done, so I can stop stressing
Yay!
about it.
One less thing.
One less thing. All right, shall we?
Let's do it.
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, Castbox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Madison,
and we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.